going to be learning about planetary destruction and also vocal distortion. It rhymed.
Stick around to find out more about vocal distortion. Hello! Welcome back to Character Voice Building with me, Fernando Macias. I'm here to help you build and develop well-rounded character voices. So we're in the texture category of the RCSB framework. If you haven't checked that out, check the overview video over there. And we're in the second of three of the elements in texture, which is distortion. And I really like this one. This one's really fun. So first of all, what exactly is distortion? Distortion is basically considered added noise to a voice. Now, full disclaimer, very important. You need to do this very carefully. You need to do this properly because otherwise you can really damage your vocal instrument. I'm going to talk about the different kinds of distortion and basically how those sounds are created, but I won't necessarily talk about technique. Why? The reason is I don't consider myself an expert in this category or in this realm, and I really don't want to be irresponsible and teach you something that could end up damaging you. So please find out other resources that could really help you from experts. There's thousands of videos out there. Some are more reputable than others, so look for experts and see what they have to say so you can learn how to do it properly without damaging yourself. So there's two types of distortions here. There's true chord distortion and there's false chord distortion. We'll talk about each of them. So let's start with true chord distortion. This is achieved mainly by stiffening the vocal folds, vocal cords, so that just a little bit of air gets through. So this makes a noise rather than pitch, kind of like a white noise. So if you really bring them together and you kind of just let a little bit of air through, that's basically what it does. And that is actually called fry distortion. In the last episode, we talked about fry as in the range when you're speaking at lower tones, but this is not the case. This is different. This is fry distortion. This is not dependent on pitch whatsoever. And fry distortion sounds a little bit like this. That's basically putting those vocal folds together, just letting a little bit of air out. Metal vocalists in particular use this kind of fry distortion to sing all the time. Yeah! Roar! Now, full disclosure, many people think that metal screaming is just like screaming your lungs out when you're being murdered or something. That is not the case, and that can really hurt you. As Corey Taylor from Slipknot once told me when I asked about how to properly scream and all that, he said, it's not like you're yelling at somebody across the street. It's not that at all. When you do that, your actual vocal folds are slamming against each other and they do create distortion, but it's really bad distortion because the force that they're just slamming against each other can really be super damaging to your vocal folds. Whereas fry screaming, when done properly, it's just putting them together, letting out just a little bit of air, and then the rest has to do with proper air support and a lot of resonance. That's really the key. People assume it's screaming super loud, but it's really not. It's just a little bit of air. There's very little movement in those vocal folds, but it's everything else, the breath support and the resonance, that really makes it seem like it's very loud. I highly encourage you to check out Mary Zimmer's channel. It's called Voice Hacks, and she has some amazing tutorials on proper screaming and all sorts of screaming. I'm going to attach a link on the description so you can check it out. The person who I learned this proper technique from is Melissa Cross, and she is considered to be the godmother of proper metal screaming. She was one of the very first to really dig deep and try to find the proper way to get that intense sound without damaging yourself. She has some DVDs out. She has some resources out there. You can check those out too. Now, does fry distortion have to be screamed? No, absolutely not. You can use it sparingly in different kinds of voices.
Rick, Morty. So, if you learn how to control it properly, you can have something gravelly like this kind of thing. That's all Fry distortion. But it's also there's some tone there. That's the kind of thing that you can achieve, you know?
So that was true chord distortion. Let's talk about false chord distortion. What's commonly referred to as the false chords are really the vestibular folds. Now, these are right above the true vocal folds. Now, if you dig through the vocal distortion stuff, you'll see people talk about the false chords being the ones that create the distortion. That's not exactly the case. Really, what causes that sound are the cartilages that are part of that, false chord structure that are making that sound. They're the cuneiform and corniculate cartilages. These are the ones responsible for things like Tibetan monk singing. I don't really know how to do proper Tibetan monk singing, but you get the idea. Now, the voice I did at the beginning of the video, that is exactly all a false chord distortion. My true folds are actually very open. They're not engaging at all. The only thing you're actually hearing is that false chord, or the cartilages really interacting with each other to create that sound. That's the cartilages. Somebody else I will recommend is Brandon Kennedy. And I'll do the link in the description. He has an amazing laryngoscopy where you can see everything that's going on there while he's doing all these different kinds of screams, from Fry, true chord to false chord distortion. And it's really, really fascinating to see. It should really help you understand what exactly is going on in here when you're doing all these sounds. And particularly in the false chord distortion, you really see the cartilages just bumping into each other. It's crazy. Now, again, for the proper way to do this, check out Mary Zimmer. One of the ways she talks about is thinking you're an exasperated teenager, just like, Mom, that is false chord. Now, another question, are true and false chord distortions independent? No, they're not. You can combine them to create different sounds. Rock vocals tend to be a little bit of a mix of both. It's a lot of compression and Fry distortion to really get that gritty, gravelly sound, but it also comes with a mix of both. So, for example, James Hetfield tends to do a lot of Fry distortion, when he's singing, but it usually at the end when he goes that kind of thing, he tends to engage a little bit of that false chord distortion. And now for extremes, Randy Blythe from Lamb of God does some amazing combinations of both Fry and false chord screaming. He's one of the most amazing examples of proper screaming technique. You can hear everything he says so clearly. It's just amazing. In other ways you can use it creatively is, for example, when you're doing creatures like monsters or dinosaurs or something like that. Remember, I talked about a lot of it. It's just a little bit of noise that's coming from here. So everything else you do is really how you play with your resonance. Check out the resonance video to see how you can manipulate that. But you don't have to limit yourself to just this. You can use your hands. You can do all sorts of cool stuff. So, for example, you can get super creative with this kind of stuff. The point here is to get familiar with the sound each of the distortions create so that you can recognize it, and once you practice it enough properly, you can apply it to your own characters.
Example 1. Hi, my mateys. I'm here. I'm your Captain Pirate thing. As you can see, I'm already dressed like a pirate. This is incredible, no? We're going to sail the 7 seas with this vocal distortion. It's there. It's really, really marvelous. There's a lot of Fry distortion going on, but there's something going on in the back. and that kind of thing is also false chord. So that's a good combination of knowing how to do both combined fry and false chord. This is really fun. I be sweating like a hog in my booth.
Example 2. Hey, hello there, my friend. This is another type of heavy distortion. This is mostly false chord distortion that you see here. You can really hear your cartilages fighting each other in your throat. That's so metal. The Goron dude from Breath of the Wild from Zelda uses this a lot, very effectively.
Example 3.
Now, for some industry examples, there's a lot of distortion that goes on in music, but I'll stick to just characters. So first, we're gonna start with Cookie Monster. This is actually referred to as like the standard for false chord distortion. It's almost all pure false chord.
Hello. Today, me here in local bakery here to talk about a word. Important.
Then we have Grungetta, who does mainly, almost always, just fry.
I didn't dream I could look this disgusting.
You look great there, babe. What does it look like, Bob?
Now, for a different show, we have Louise Belcher. Her screaming is just so fun. She does it all the time, and it's very, very, distorted. But she does both. She can do both false chord and true chord distortion.
I got you ripped! I did it! I did the destruction! Godzilla.
And finally, we have Mark Hamill's Joker. This is one of the most delicious examples of distortion in a voice, and he really uses them both. One comes and the other just morphs into the other. It's just so much texture. It's amazing.
You fell for the old sick Joker gag, Batman. Take my blood, for example. I wish somebody would. This stuff is killing me.
Why should I care?
Because now there's a teeny little bit of me in you too, Bats. Hold tight. I'm in touch!
So that was vocal distortion. Again, be very careful when you practice these things. Look up tutorials by experts. And if you can, I would highly suggest actually having one-on-one lessons with the expert so you can learn to do it properly. Now, listen to distortion in every character you come across. Get familiar with the sound of each, the true and the false chord distortion. Learn to differentiate the two, and with that, you'll be well on your way to creating beautiful, textured, distorted character voices. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope this helps you develop your character voices further. Please like and subscribe and check out What the World podcast. It is an improvised comedy show done completely in character, and it's mainly there just as my personal practice, but anybody can listen to it. Perhaps they'll help in understanding how to apply these concepts to specific characters, and hopefully do them on your own. Thanks again, have a great time, be kind, and I'll see you soon.